Live from the WHBC Broadcast Center. Find out more about area businesses, agencies, and events.
It's what's going on right now.
This is Spotlight.
All right, good Monday morning, everyone. This 20th day of May. It's a beautiful day, nice and warm outside, and we have our special edition of Spotlight on this Monday. It's special because Dominic Fonte is in studio with us today. Dominic Fonte and Associates, Cutler Realty. How are you, sir?
Pam, I'm doing well today. How about you on this beautiful Monday?
I am doing great, and I can't believe it's like Memorial Day is just coming up this weekend.
I'm telling you, graduations, college,
Yes.
high school, Memorial Day, obviously two different celebrations, but with all the parents and grandparents, congrats on all your children, grandchildren.
Yeah.
And also Memorial Day, you know, we really honor and we're so grateful for all the men and women that gave the ultimate sacrifice
Absolutely.
to give us these beautiful freedoms that we enjoy and sometimes take for granted. So God bless everybody out there. And hopefully this show, the listeners and the viewers are going to get something from this today. So thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you. And I'll say right off the bat, we are live on Facebook right now, so you can check us out. We waved at you already. And if you want to put a question on Facebook, we'd be more than happy to read it so that Dom can answer the question for you. But you can also call in and ask a question if you'd like to. We'll take some calls this morning, 330-450-1480. There's so much going on in your business, and some of it's pretty confusing. I'm not going to lie.
That's right.
So where do we start?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think in general, when you hear headlines and you see sound bites, and the way our society is pretty dialed in today, we're all busy. So it's hard to really parse through all the information to get the facts.
Yeah.
And it is even confusing for a guy like me after 36 years, you know. But I think in general, it's important to be informed no matter what arena you're in, buying, selling, thinking about it, investing, building, or just sitting on the sidelines and renting. There might be an opportunity for you. So hopefully by the end of today, when we finish the show, you'll be a better informed decision maker if that's what you choose to do with you and your loved ones.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes I think people sit, like you say, sit on the sidelines and kind of watch, and then, you know, oh, I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to wait till the interest rate's different. I'm going to wait until this is something. I mean, is that necessarily what you should do, or how does it, you know, what's the best thing to do?
Well, one of the things I like to do is, you know, when I meet with a client and we are trying to figure out what their needs are, we look at in their mind and in their life and in their situation, what are the pluses to owning real estate? What would be the minuses of owning real estate? And if the pluses outweigh the minuses, then I give them the navigation. I basically, you know, I help them understand what programs are available. And a lot of times I think, you know, we just think what we think, or you only know what you know until you know more. And so I'm trying to help you learn more so you make that great decision. But, you know, sometimes it's right to sit on the headline or the sidelines. But I think in general, you know, it's important to understand, you know, the affordability factor, supply, demand. There's always what's called consumer confidence. How do I feel about my job, you know, my retirement account? Because those are all factors that play into it. And then you hear a lot about the interest rates. You know, they're quite a bit higher, you know, 7%, which is really high compared to what it was for a long time.
Yeah.
Not the highest it's ever been. But I think, like, when I look at Gen Z, the younger people, and my kids, I have 5 children, so I have some in that category. And they say to me, Dad, you know, I think the window's closed for us. They don't feel hopeful that there's a way or a, you know, a track or a GPS or to get them to that goal line if that's what they choose to do. So I think it's really just understanding what's really happening. And that's why I always go back to, you know, a lot of agents understand what's happening, but very much professional, great agents can articulate what's happening for the clients, because, you know, maybe it's right for the sidelines, but, you know, if you want to get in the arena, sooner the better, because the prices aren't going down.
Do people actually try and sell their homes themselves anymore?
Yes, indeed. I don't know. There was a lot of talk recently about NAR, National Association of Realtors. There was a class action suit, and it's one of the largest trade organizations in the country. I don't know, there's like 1.6 million people. And so what happened was there was some trouble with the commissions, like price fixing and different things like that. And, it's just like in any profession, you have the experts and then you have people that are kind of mediocre. And some of these things happen, I think, because of, if you're a buyer or a seller, how many times you think you're going to do it in your whole life? Maybe 2-3 times. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to be the expert. So you have to count on, if you're going to have a professional, an expert. So let's say, Pam, you're thinking of selling your home yourself. Maybe you're going to interview an agent or two. You're not really sure because you're looking into all your options. And, and if you feel comfortable, of course you can sell it by yourself. You don't need a real estate agent. But most of the time there's so many intricacies to the process that, you want to feel like you understand it. And what is the value of the agent, helping you navigate this? And if the agent's good and can explain what it is that agent does for you, then you might see the value there.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about the settlement is that how it normally would work is, so you have an agent come out, hopefully a knowledgeable agent, and you're trying to figure out what you think the market value would be. So that agent comes out, they do their market research, they share the information with you. And a lot of times, maybe your neighbor said to you, hey, Pam, if you ever go to sell your house, let us know. So you're calling me, and you might just want to make sure you don't underprice it. You want to know what the market price would be. And so at that point, you may just sell it directly to them without me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But in general, from my experience, the commission's usually broken into a few pieces. So like if you do decide to use a professional, what would happen is the agent a lot of times would work with the seller, and the seller would pay a fee, whatever's negotiable. And by the way, there are discount brokers. There's companies that do it for $990. They'll do it for $500. And then there's people that'll charge, a various amount negotiated. So a lot of times when I meet with people, they might interview 3 or 4 agents, and if they perceive the cheapest one being the best, that's who they would go with. But it's just an interesting dynamic with the fees, and it's broken into all different ways. But generally speaking, as a seller, we would negotiate a commission, and usually a portion of that commission would be offered to the buyer broker as an incentive, so that if they bring a customer, they would get paid, right, in essence. But now they're saying, you don't really have to pay the buyer broker. And so you can imagine what that would look like if the buyer had to pay their own realtor now on top of moving expenses, down payment, closing cost. It'd be a little painful, honestly.
I can't imagine selling my house on my own. I would just be so concerned, fearful, that there was something I was missing, or, just all the ins and outs and the best way to do things. You guys, that's what you guys do.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, let's face it. So, it's just, if you something like you do every day, like buy a purse, a belt, or shoes, whatever, a house is kind of more intricate because there's many parties involved in the transaction. And really the job of the agent is to, depending on what side of it they're on, the buying side or the selling side, there's different roles and expertise that they have to bring to the table to help you navigate the best situation for yourself.
Right.
It's an interesting dynamic, and it is confusing.
And, as you look at the market right now, you were saying when you came in, there's just a lot of confusion right now. How do people tell what's right and what's the truth? I guess that's where you come in again, right?
Well, it comes down to, you want to work with a professional that understands what's happening in your backyard. Because, like, if you hear headlines, and let's say the headlines say this is happening and that's happening, and you're getting sound bites, then that could cause you to stand on the sideline instead of jumping in. So you always want to know how it affects you where you live. What's the market doing? Supply, demand, interest rates, and are there special programs out there that could help you? And there's a lot of those out there nowadays. You just have to find them, or have a person help you find them.
Because, people think I have to save this amount of money. I need to have this amount of a down payment, and there might be some things that they don't realize that certainly aren't
like
necessary.
A lot of people. I think even for me, when I was younger, I thought, well, you have to save 20%, put 20% down to eliminate that what's called PMI, private mortgage insurance. but that's not really necessary. There's a credit, what your credit look like, and then there's programs, grant programs, and a lot of programs for first-time buyers. There's a lot of programs for second and third-time buyers. And if you ever want to, if the listeners want to jot this down, go to downpaymentresource.com, downpaymentresource.com. Realtors can do it too, and learn some of the programs. Now, many times they're not really advertised. You have to dig for them.
Mm-hmm.
But, you could buy a house 3% down, get a grant for part of the down payment, and actually get into the game. And so I think if you're informed, you really do have lots of options. And, the rates are probably going to come down maybe later this year, possibly. I don't see it happening anytime soon because we're into April, May, and June, which is normally the busier time.
Yeah.
So I don't see any adjustments anytime soon.
Okay. All right. We're going to take our first break. And again, we have our special edition of Spotlight. We're live on Facebook right now. If you have any questions you want to pose there, go ahead, or you can call us. Dominic Fonte, Dominic Fonte and Associates, Cutler Realty. Would love to chat with you on this beautiful Monday morning.
Now back to Spotlight on 1480 WHBC.
And welcome back to this Monday edition of Spotlight on 1480 WHBC. Pam Cook with you. Dominic Fonte with you as well. Dominic Fonte and Associates, Cutler Realty. And I'm going to say, let's see, you can call 330-418-1535. And Dominic at DominicFonte.com is your email address.
That's right.
Very easy.
Now, if you call right now, it'll just roll to voicemail since I'm in here. But I'll call you back.
That's right. That's right. And so I just want people to get your name and understand how they can get in touch with you, because we always have people ask that when you're on the air, so when you come on and visit us, because they have questions for you. And if you want to call in and ask Dom a question, we would love to hear from you, 330-450-1480, or you can put a question on Facebook. Billy's monitoring that, and he'll bring that question to us. So I guess, I don't know, what are you dealing with mostly in your business with people? I mean, just the fact that maybe more people need to kind of follow and learn what the process is?
Well, in general, it depends on what side of it you're on. So there's the buying side if
right.
you want to be a buyer, or a selling side if you want to be a seller.
Mm-hmm.
And what is very tricky right now is the affordability factor. So it's less affordable now than it was, just a couple of years ago,
mm-hmm.
right? Because the rates were around 2 3/4. Now they're around 7%. And I find when they're in the 6s, there's a lot more activity. But part of the problem is, being a buyer or seller, there's just not enough inventory. So we're, running tight on inventory. So there's a lot more people that would like to buy or sell than the market. So that's why the prices are so high. It's not the commission. It's not the interest rates. It's the supply and demand. That's with everything.
Okay.
Too few items for too many people, which drives the price. Now, what's stifling the activity now is because of the interest rates and inflation and consumer confidence, which would be world events, things like that. Now, the trick to it is if you're a buyer, and off-air Billy, behind the scenes, we were talking about his friends that are in their 20s are like, wow, this is very frustrating. They're thinking about building. Well, part of the time now, is there's such a shortage that, yes, that's a great option to build if you can afford it. And the builders now are building smaller homes because they're trying to make up for the affordability gap. So back in the 90s, they were building these McMansions, and now it's 2,000 square feet or even a little less now. And that's why tiny homes and smaller homes and container homes are pretty attractive, But I just think in general, if you're a buyer, there's a 15-step process. And a lot of times, you're online looking and you're on Zillow and you're on these different sites. You really have to meet with a professional, because I think the most important thing is to figure out, since it's so expensive and stressful and very emotional, you have to understand what it is your long-term goals are. And then once we figure that out, then don't just go online and find a lender that you push a button and you're approved. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
You have to deal with an expert in that arena too. So we would help give you some choices there if you don't have one, because that would make the experience better and the program that might work best for you and your loved ones. because it's not just cut and dry. And then once that happens, then, where do you go find the home? Is it by owner? Is it on Zillow? Is it in the Redfin? Is it through the real estate expert? And so there's a little procedure, and I call it the gold standard, because I think today, with all the search engines, with everything online, people will go to these other sites which are not even accurate. And I'm sure if a lot of people, they get pretty flustered because it says it's available and it really isn't, or it's open and it really isn't.
Yeah.
So I think the big thing is here, folks, is if you want to do it, meet with an expert, a professional that really gets it, and you will see what the value is that person brings to the table to help you execute your wishes, so that really you want your best interests put forward, and you need that expert to help you do that. So, I think that's really the guidance factor of it. And if you do that and they set the expectations realistically for you, then you won't be so depressed, because real estate is not only expensive, but it's very emotional. So when I meet with a customer, I always say, you don't fall in love with your mortgage, do you? Especially at the 7% interest rate.
No.
You fall in love with the house, and then the logic part is what, helps you stay good with your decision. And the other thing is that you try to look at what would be your long-term goal. So when you buy a house, you're not buying it and then selling it in a year or two. This is where you might have a lifestyle. You might modify the home. You might have your mom come and live with you and help take care of her. There's many things like that are happening now with that multi-generational type situation. Like people that have kids, and mom helps with the kids, and you help with mom, and we can spread the cost between everybody.
That's all changing.
Yeah.
Our kids live at home longer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, and the other thing I see is like on older folks, the boomers, my age and older, they remember the years when, we had all those foreclosures and short sales in 2008 through 13. And so I think they're a little gun shy. They might be in a position to do it, but they're afraid to be homeless. So they just pause. Mm-hmm. Now, if there was a mechanism, which there is, to get them into a home or build a nice little home, a villa, all first floor, then that would open up houses for the young generation like Billy here, and that would help, because we still have a shortage. Yeah. Technically.
So it is a seller's market?
Yeah, it's a seller's market where the sellers are benefiting. But keep in mind, if you are benefiting as a seller, you also have to be a buyer.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
So unless you move into an apartment or something.
Or you're going on a cruise for 3 years.
I've read stories about that.
Yeah, me too.
That's my retirement. I'm going to live on a cruise.
All right, we're going to take our break for the news, and we'll be back again. Dominic Fonte and Associates, Cutler Realty, and we would love to have you give us a call or post some questions on Facebook, and we'll be back with more on Spotlight on 1480 WHBC.
Now back to Spotlight on 1480 WHBC.
And it is a Monday edition of Spotlight, and we are live on Facebook right this very moment. If you want to send us a little message and ask a question, please do on Facebook. Right, Dom?
Do it live.
Yeah.
I'll do the best I can. So send me a question of what your concerns are. Last time I was on, I know we had a few with people concerned about their children, that the hope is dashed. Well, we don't want you to feel that way. It is a little harder and a little more complicated, but I think if you have a good guide, I can walk you through the process, honestly, and it would be very beneficial.
Yeah, still saving money is important.
Yeah, budgeting, living within your means, looking at the long view is super important.
Right.
I think when you look at people that buy real estate, even if they feel they're on the sidelines waiting for prices to come down, that's not happening. I see it still hovering about 5% appreciation this year, maybe 6%, and next year the same, because of the supply and demand. Until you see a bigger supply, the prices aren't going to come down.
Yeah. It's also helpful when you're a two-person family,
income?
Two income, two-person, two-income family. Yes, that does help a lot.
It's just, I think what happens is if you have a family and everybody's working and trying to manage the family, everybody's stress levels are higher.
Yeah, that's true.
And then with the inflation and things like that, it's a hard balance. But I think, I always go back to the pluses and minuses to what you want. And that's more of a logic-based concept.
Yeah.
So that way since real estate is so emotional, you're using a lot of your logic. And like off air, we were talking about, since there is a low supply and, everybody's busy with their jobs and their life, can they see past that house that's beat up and needs work, smells like dog or something like that, right?
Yes.
So like HGTV tainted us a little bit.
It does.
But I tell you, there's a huge opportunity out there if you're looking, especially the younger people. If you have folks, parents, uncles, or whatever that understand, the bones of it. So that would be location number one, and the condition would be, what you get it as. But keep in mind, over time, you can enhance any house. And the sooner you get into the arena, the sooner you start building wealth. And honestly, that's the biggest wealth builder for most people is their real estate.
Yeah. Good structure, get a good structure and make sure.
Yeah, and then you put your sweat equity into it.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot about how to maintain and care for your home. You also build sweat equity, they call. So you're building wealth into it.
Yeah.
And now if you're rich, you could just pay for everything and have everybody do everything.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when you're younger and starting out, since it's more expensive, you have to just look broader and wider. So always go for the best location you can afford with the best bones, and then easily enhance it. And I have a book that even shows you before and after to give you ideas, because I think a lot of people are visual. They want to see that to help them say that, you know what, I think I could do this. And that's how you build wealth. Yeah. And it's over a period of time.
And it's fun to go in and rip out carpeting.
I do. The wallpaper's not as fun because, that's a hassle.
Yeah, you don't know what's underneath. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still exciting to watch the transformation of your home. And I think that's when they talk about pride of ownership. Not only do you build wealth and provide for your loved ones, but you can you see the transformation. And it's very rewarding to see a kind of a diamond in the rough, and then you enhance it, or you open this up or that up. You put some new fixtures in, like some paint. Paint goes a long way, really. Paint. Yep. Floor coverings. They got all kinds of neat products now. Yeah. It's awesome. I love it. This is my 36th year of helping people figure it out.
That's good. That's good. Do we see many foreclosures anymore?
Well, there's still foreclosures, but since there's such a shortage of real estate, the foreclosures would sell very quickly at a premium price. And there are a handful of people still struggling with, jobs, security, and all kinds of other things. So if there's anybody ever in trouble, you feel like your hope's out, reach out to me and I can kind of guide you through the process of how to get out of something, get you into an apartment, and get back on your feet and actually put money in your pocket too.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a little nerve-wracking, though, because when you feel beat up, it's hard to how to deal with it. So that's why you need someone that'll look out for your best interest.
So when somebody's trying to decide, we've given a lot of options here, when they're trying to do that. So what's their first step? I mean, just contacting you, obviously, but how does that all work for them? Well,
so a lot of times people say, oh, yeah, we're already pre-approved. And I always say you should have that conversation first. I just find a lot of times they'll get pre-approved first and do it a little bit backwards. But there's a needs analysis you need to do first. And so our main core that I do with my team is what are the pluses and what are the minuses, or the pros and cons. And so that's to help you focus in on what is most important to you. Because like a lot of times you might think you need this and you need that. So it's like what's your must-haves and like-to-haves. And so you try to figure out realistically what does that look like based on your budget. And then once we figure that out, then we set you up on a showing platform, the gold standard, so you get the most up-to-date information quickly. And then if there's still a shortage of properties, which there is, then you have to know how to position your offer so that we get the maximum response so that you can win instead of be disappointed. Because, the worst part I think about real estate is you see a property, you get your hopes up, you get all excited, you tell your friends and family, and you think you make a good offer and it's positioned correctly and it doesn't work. And then what happens? You get all depressed and you're frustrated. And any other house after that, you compare to the one you didn't get. But eventually you will find a replacement. Yeah. But it's just frustrating. So I think that's why I do the pluses and minuses, because that helps guide people. And then the other thing is that if you do get into the arena, it moves at a fast pace. And you're doing this big thing quickly. And then what happens is you get high anxiety or buyer's remorse. Typically happens about 2 a.m. You wake up in a hot sweat and you're like, how do I get out of this? And so I always say, if you have the pluses and minuses or the pros and cons, what would happen at that point is you pull the list out, take a deep breath, and you say, okay, I'm not crazy. This is okay. We're going to say these pluses outweigh the minuses. That's why I'm doing it. It's just a little nervy because, you don't know your neighbors and you don't know, can I afford it? Or, you start second guessing yourself.
Yes.
But I think if you have a good guide and they walk you through it in the right order and then get you pre-approved so that you have an expert in that arena, then the transaction is much smoother. And then when you run into appraisal issues or home inspection issues, your professional agent can guide you through what's realistic and not. And if you don't have that foundation, then it's just a disaster and you have a miserable experience.
And that, when you talk about that, like what's realistic and not, because, listening to other people talk, well, we got the seller to do this and we got the to do that. And I think, oh my gosh, well, how did you come to that decision? And is that something that you obviously would help them with, right?
Yeah. So for example, say you have an inspection and so there's always a honey-do list, right? So no matter what, I've never seen a Rolex watch house.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always things that need to be done. Now, but let's say there's a small gas leak or a safety issue. Like let's say your electric box had some char in it, like maybe the wire was double tapped and maybe it was loose and it arced. Well, that would be a major issue that you as a consumer wouldn't pick up on. So those are things that need to be addressed in the negotiations. But there are other things that maybe could be dealt with later. So sometimes instead of panicking and asking for renegotiations where you're going to get the transaction will fall through, sometimes what you could do is in lieu of those repairs, you just work out a credit towards closing costs to offset some of your closing costs. And then after you close, you use your money since you save money on closing costs because the seller helped that way. And then you control the repair by the contractor that you want and the way you want it done. Because sometimes, like if you leave it up to the seller, you might worry that maybe they won't do it the way you want it or they'll take the shortcut. I'm not saying that's true, but I'm just saying that could happen, right?
Right.
And so I always like to control the repair if I could. But if it's a safety issue or, rate on gas or something like that, many times you can address that, after closing, during closing. It just depends on what would be, if you're a buyer, what would work best for the seller so that it's a win-win. Because see, really, in this market we're in, you have to be in a win-win situation in order to, get what you want at the price you need.
So you need to work it out.
Yeah, and that's what your agent will help you guide you through.
Right.
But you just need someone that's dialed in. And if they're not dialed in, then, you don't want to be the guinea pig.
Is there a number of homes that people go through on an average before they actually get one?
Well, so think of it like how today's society is. So there's not a lot of homes like it was, in the 2000s, right? You could look at 20 homes and then maybe make a decision, physically go through 20 homes, maybe 30 homes. But now there's a home here, it's sold. There's a home there, it's sold. So you might only get through 3 or 4 homes, but online, how many did you look at?
Right.
So online, they're looking at, 30, 40, 50, 60 homes over the course of time. So they might have physically only gone through 4 or 5 homes. So that's okay. But again, it comes down to what are the pluses, what are the minuses of your wishes as you go into each location. So, if you have, let's say, small children and you're going to be there 10, 15 years, let's say the average is 10 years or 11 years, and you have kids in school, well, then school districts might be the driver for you. What's the location of the school district you're interested in? Unless you're in private school and you pay for it, then it doesn't really matter. So everybody wants the best location they can afford for whatever their situation is. Now, if I'm like, say, older and close to retirement, probably my doctors, drugstores, groceries, within a short distance. Yes. And I want to feel safe, and I want everything on one floor.
Yeah.
So I can free up my 2-story house for Billy and his buddies.
That's exactly right. All right, we're going to take our final break this morning. And again, if you would like to pose a question on Facebook, please do, or feel free to call even. Dominic would be more than happy to answer your questions at 330-450-1480.
Now Now back to Spotlight on 1480 WHBC.
All right, we're back on Spotlight on this Monday morning, May the 20th, and the sun is shining. Wouldn't this be a beautiful day to go house hunting? I think it would be.
Every day's a good day to house hunt if you're not on the sidelines.
That was a softball I threw right at you, didn't I?
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
No problem. Yeah, we've just been talking about, good ways to prepare yourself. And, even if you're an older couple and you want to downsize, like you said, selling the larger house opens it up for the folks like Billy and his, his crew.
Well, there's what's interesting, you have between Gen Z, Gen X, the boomers and millennials, that makes up 275 million people. So there's a lot of people that would like to probably do something. And off air, we were talking, Billy said a lot of his friends are not sure what to do and are on the sidelines. And so they're hoping that, I guess, prices are going to come down. Maybe they're not getting the straight story. But remember, it's always supply and demand. So the supply is so low. That's why prices are up, and magically there can't be a lot more homes put on the market. So, it's going to continue to go up in pricing. So the sooner you get into the arena, the sooner you start building equity. Now, if the interest rate's a little higher right now, which it is, if the rates come down, which they probably will because it's an election year, and I expect in the fall, when the market cools off, they're going to lower the rate. So what's going to happen is you refinance, lower the rate, and in the meantime, you're taking advantage of that 5-6% appreciation. And I think that's really where it is, because at the end of the day, if you're paying $1,000 a month rent over the course of 12 months, how much is that? $12,000.
Right.
And how quick can you be in your house for 3 or 4 years renting? And that's a huge amount of money. And sometimes, you say, well, it's cheaper to rent than own. That's right. And there's nothing wrong with renting. But when you look at the long view, so you remember I always say, the long view.
The long view.
Because, in transition, of course, I rented before. So you always want to look at the long view and get in the game as soon as possible. But it's hard to do that on your own. You need an expert in your corner. And that's what I would say. You want to reach out to me or someone that you trust that's good. And we were talking off air, Pam and I, if you just aren't sure, because I think we're skeptical anyhow as humans. We don't want anybody bugging us, and I'm not sure if I want to do it. I'm just trying to figure things out.
Right, exactly. Yes.
So go to DominicFonte.com. I have over 450 5-star reviews that are typed, a lot of good messages. It will help you understand what it is that I do to help people, to give you some peace in your heart. With the heart of a teacher, you want to work with someone like that that's an expert. And if there's anybody out there listening, don't be shy. Send in a question. There's no dumb questions. I think what it is you just want to be comfortable to ask, and I'll try to answer it live here before this segment's over.
Yeah, go ahead. Just pop one up there, and even if you want to just call, that'd be great. Normally you can even send one to my email. I'm always asking questions through my email when we do our gardening show. So why couldn't I do that right now?
Right.
I could, if somebody wanted to send in an email because they didn't really feel like asking a question. But there are tons of questions because, like I said to you, it can be very confusing, and it also is very scary, especially if you're a youngster, and even if you're in your 30s and 40s and you're trying to do this, you know what I mean?
It's scary.
Yeah.
It is, because it isn't, like I said before, between the age of 25 and 75, you might only do it 3 times.
Right.
Think about that. I've done it 2,500 times. So you think that would be? Do you think if I was on your side, it would help you?
And you know what? The other part of it is too. I mean, I'm no dummy, So it's not like I understand certain things and understand what works, but I don't know all of the things about your business. You know what I mean? So there's the ways to make it work for each individual. That's, I think, the key. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different situation, right?
Well, that's why we go always back to what are the pluses and minuses or pros and cons in your mind, not my mind. I know what's in my mind. It's a handful. But in your mind, you want to do what's best for you based on logic, even though emotions are a big piece of it. That's why you always want to stay focused on that. That way there you feel very good about your decision. It's not like you're going to Vegas gambling away all your money to buy a crazy house. It's a pretty stable investment if you do it for the long view, always long view.
What do people tell you is like their deal breaker these days? What do they come and say, I got to have this in my house?
Well, with when COVID happened, home offices are really important. So, so sometimes now if I'm working from home, I need a space to go. Mm-hmm. So if it's a 4-bedroom and I only need 3 bedrooms, then I can use one of the bedrooms for an office. Or if there's a rec space in the basement or a little closet, even under steps. I see some people under the stairwell, they'll open the door up and kind of make like a little cubby in there for their office. I've seen it all. But I think, it's like that. Affordability and location. Location is still most important.
You know what my deal breaker would be? An attached garage.
Well, true. Well, where you are in your life, too. You're not going to walk through the snow. Now, if you were like in your 20s, you might sacrifice that. But as you get older, you want to be convenient. And you don't want to be like shoveling snow off your car, and you don't want to slip on the ice going to your car.
And at 4:00 in the morning, I don't want to go outside of my car.
I agree. So that might be a deal killer. Mm-hmm. Maybe 2 toilets might be a deal killer.
Yeah.
Like if you have someone living with you,
That's
and then
right.
there's an emergency.
Exactly.
You want to have bath and a half, 2 bathrooms would be great.
That's right.
Also, 2-car garage is a real plus if you're not by yourself.
Yeah.
I think.
See, I'm making a list there.
And then if I'm freaked out about tornadoes, I definitely want a basement. What'd you say?
A basement. Yes, absolutely. All right. So let's tell everyone how to get in touch with you if they want to talk to you in person, if they want to visit you.
So if you have any questions, and like I said, don't be shy, send a question, call, text, email. So it'd be Dominic at DominicFonte.com for the email. You can call me or text at 330-418-1535. If you want to see what you'd experience working with me and my team, go to DominicFonte.com. I have over 450 5-star reviews, and I can promise you if you read some of those, you'll get the gist of it. And other than that, just call. There's no question. It doesn't cost to call. I'm not going to bother you or bug you. I'm here to help with the heart of a teacher, and if you need help, I'd love to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the guy to get in contact with because he will help you. And again, DominicFonte.com is his website. And then what about whatsmyhouseworth.com?
Yeah, it's a nice landing page. If you want to put in your address, it'll send you a computerized report within like 30 seconds. It's an algorithm, so if you need an accurate picture, it's fun to do and it gives you a ballpark. But if you need an accurate picture, you can call anytime. And I do it for people just for planning, just to try to understand what their equity position is, because a lot of people have equity and they're just trying to figure things out. It's a baby stepping process.
All right, very good. DominicFonte.com. And thank you, sir, for coming back in. And
My
I know
pleasure.
we'll see you again soon.
Everybody have a great Memorial Day weekend.